The massive alien ship hung in Earth's sky like a dark cloud. Commander Daeho Kim stood at the window of the United Earth Defense Building, watching the strange vessel that had appeared 3 days ago. His hands were steady, but his mind was racing. This was humanity's first contact with aliens, and it was not going the way anyone had hoped. Behind him, Dr. Bo-young Park was reading through the translation of the alien message that had arrived that morning. Her face was pale as she looked up at Admiral Soo-jin Lee, who sat quietly at the conference table. The three of them had been chosen to represent Earth in this historic moment, but none of them felt ready for what was coming. "They want to meet today," Dr. Park said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The translation says they are from something called the Galactic Council. They want to discuss Earth's future." Admiral Lee nodded slowly. She had spent 30 years in the military, fighting in wars and keeping peace, but this was different. These were not human enemies. These were beings from another world, with technology far beyond anything Earth possessed. "How many ships do they have?" Daeho asked, still looking out the window. "Our satellites show 12 different types of vessels," Admiral Lee replied, "each one bigger than our largest battleship. They could destroy every major city on Earth in minutes if they wanted to." Dr. Park closed the translation device and stood up. "Maybe they come in peace. Maybe they want to be friends." Daeho turned around, and both women could see the worry in his eyes. Or maybe they want something else. 2 hours later, the three humans stood in the main conference room waiting. The aliens had asked to meet at the United Nations building in New York, but Earth's leaders had insisted on neutral ground. The compromise was this facility, built specifically for international defense meetings. The air in the room suddenly shimmered, and three figures appeared out of nowhere. Dr. Park gasped and stepped back. The aliens were tall, much taller than humans, with blue-gray skin and 4 arms. Their eyes were large and black, and when they looked at the humans, their expressions showed clear disgust. The middle alien stepped forward and spoke. Its voice was deep and echoed strangely in the room. "I am Ambassador Veltar Kresh of the Galactic Council. You are the leaders of this world?" Commander Kim stepped forward. "I am Commander Daeho Kim. This is Dr. Bo-young Park and Admiral Soo-jin Lee. We represent the United Earth Government." The alien made a sound that might have been laughter, but it was not pleasant. "United Earth Government, how primitive. You have divided your world into hundreds of small territories and fight constantly among yourselves." "We have had peace for over 50 years, Admiral Lee said firmly. 50 years, Ambassador Kresh repeated, as if the number was amusing. "My species has had peace for 50,000 years. This is why we must help you." Dr. Park frowned. "Help us?" The ambassador's 4 arms moved, and suddenly a holographic image appeared in the air between them. It showed a map of the galaxy, with thousands of star systems marked in different colors. "This is civilized space," Kresh explained. 12. Advanced species work together under the guidance of the Galactic Council. We bring order to chaos. We bring peace to primitive worlds like yours. The hologram changed, showing Earth surrounded by alien ships. Your world has resources that the galaxy needs. Your people have potential, but only if properly guided. The Council has decided to offer Earth integration into our civilization. Commander Kim felt his heart rate increase, but he kept his voice calm. "What does integration mean?" Ambassador Kresh smiled, showing teeth that were too sharp. "It is simple. Earth will provide 70% of its natural resources to the Council. Your military will be disbanded. Your governments will be replaced by Council administrators. Most of your population will be relocated to designated colony worlds where they can be properly educated." The silence in the room was deafening. Dr. Park stared at the alien as if she could not believe what she had heard. Admiral Lee's hand had moved instinctively toward her sidearm, though she knew it would be useless. "You want us to give up our independence," Commander Kim said slowly. "Independence is an illusion for primitive species," Kresh replied. "You fight wars over resources that could be shared. You waste time on art and philosophy instead of productive labor. You allow emotions to guide your decisions instead of logic. The Council will correct these flaws. And if we refuse? Admiral Lee asked. The ambassador's expression did not change. Refusal is not an option. Every species we have encountered has eventually seen the wisdom of Council guidance. Some require more convincing than others. The hologram changed again, showing images of destroyed cities and burning worlds. These worlds chose to resist at first. They learned the price of defying the Council, but they are grateful now for the peace we brought them. Dr. Park stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. How many species are part of your Council? 12 species govern, as I said. 347 species serve under our guidance. Earth will become the 348th. What happened to their original governments? She asked. Primitive governments are replaced by council administrators who understand the needs of civilized society. Local populations are relocated to worlds better suited to their abilities. Resources are distributed where they can do the most good for galactic civilization. Commander Kim felt anger building in his chest, but he forced himself to remain calm. You are talking about conquest. We prefer the term integration, Kresh said. Conquest implies taking something by force. We offer species the opportunity to join willingly. Those who accept immediately enjoy the benefits of Council protection and guidance. Those who resist learn the same lessons but with more difficulty. How long do we have to consider your offer? Kim asked. 30 standard days, the ambassador replied. This is generous. Most species receive only 7 days, but the Council recognizes that primitive cultures need more time to understand complex concepts. The alien waved one of its 4 hands and a device appeared on the table. This contains the complete terms of integration, translated into your various languages. Study it carefully. When we return in 30 days, we will expect your answer. What if different nations on Earth give different answers? Dr. Park asked. Ambassador Kresh made that unpleasant laughing sound again. The Council does not negotiate with individual tribes. You will speak with one voice, or we will choose leaders who can. The 3 aliens began to fade away, using the same technology that had brought them. 30 days, Kresh's voice echoed as they disappeared. Choose wisely. The room fell silent except for the hum of the air conditioning. Commander Kim walked slowly to the window and looked up at the alien ship, still hanging in Earth's sky like a threat. They want to make us slaves, Admiral Lee said quietly. They want to destroy our civilization, Dr. Park added, her voice shaking. Commander, Kim turned back to face them, and both women saw something in his eyes that had not been there before. It was not fear or despair. It was the cold, calculating look of a predator sizing up its prey. No, he said softly. They want to try. He picked up the alien device from the table and held it carefully. We have 30 days to give them our answer. Let's make sure it's one they'll never forget. Outside, the alien ship continued its silent vigil, unaware that humanity had just received its first and final ultimatum. The countdown had begun, but not in the way the Galactic Council expected. Captain Wu Jin Choi crouched behind a pile of alien cargo containers, watching the Veltar guards patrol the storage facility. He had been on this alien world for 6 days, and still could not believe he was actually here. 3 weeks ago, he had been training Special Forces soldiers in the mountains of Korea. Now he was millions of miles from Earth, stealing alien technology. The plan had seemed impossible when Commander Kim first explained it. While the world's politicians appeared to debate the Galactic Council's ultimatum, Earth's best soldiers and scientists would secretly learn everything they could about alien technology and weaknesses. No one expected humans to be capable of interstellar travel, so no one would be watching for them. Engineer Hee Jin Nam had made it possible. Working around the clock since the aliens first arrived, she had reverse-engineered their transportation technology from the energy signatures, left behind when they teleported. It had taken her team 18 days to build a working prototype, and another 3 days to test it safely. The first test had almost killed the volunteer pilot, but the second test worked perfectly. By day 25 of the 30-day ultimatum, Earth had secret teams operating on 4 different alien worlds. Wu Jin checked his watch. In 10 minutes, the night shift guards would change places with the day shift. That was when he would make his move. He touched the small device attached to his belt, making sure it was still working. The alien scanner that Hyejin had modified would copy any technology it touched, storing the data for later analysis. On Earth, diplomat Yuna Seo was playing a very different kind of game. She sat across from Ambassador Kresh in the same conference room where humanity had first learned about the Galactic Council. But this time, she was not asking questions. She was providing answers. The human leaders are having great difficulty reaching agreement, she told the alien diplomat, making her voice sound worried and frustrated. Some nations want to accept your generous offer immediately. Others are being stubborn and unrealistic. Ambassador Kresh leaned back in his chair, clearly pleased. This is always the problem with primitive worlds. Too many leaders, not enough wisdom. Perhaps the Council should choose Earth's leaders for you. That might be necessary, Yuna agreed, though the words made her sick. The Asian nations are mostly in favor of integration. We understand the benefits of order and cooperation. But the Western nations keep talking about freedom and independence. Freedom is chaos, Kresh said firmly. Independence is isolation. The Council brings structure and purpose to primitive societies. Yuna nodded as if she agreed completely. In reality, she was recording every word and transmitting it back to Earth's intelligence network. Every piece of information about alien psychology and culture would be valuable in the coming conflict. Could you tell me more about how integration usually works? She asked. My government wants to prepare our people for the transition. Kresh was happy to explain. The aliens always followed the same pattern. First, they identified the most important resources on a planet and took control of them. Then they divided the population into groups based on their usefulness to the Council. The most intelligent individuals were sent to serve as administrators on other worlds. The strongest were used as laborers in dangerous industries. The rest were relocated to farming colonies where they could produce food for more advanced species. What happens to our history and culture? Yuna asked, though she was afraid of the answer. Primitive cultures are replaced by civilized education, Kresh replied. Your children will learn proper values instead of the violent and wasteful traditions of their ancestors. Within 3 generations, they will be grateful that the Council saved them from their primitive past. While Yuna was gathering intelligence, through conversation, Captain Wu Jin was gathering it through action. The alien guards had changed shifts exactly on schedule, and he had successfully entered the storage facility. The technology inside was beyond anything he had imagined. Weapons that could destroy buildings with a single shot. Armor that could stop any projectile. Communication devices that could send messages across the galaxy instantly. Medical equipment that could heal injuries in minutes. All of it was there, waiting to be studied and copied. But as he worked, Wu Jin noticed something important. The alien technology was incredibly advanced, but it was also rigid. Every device was designed to work in exactly one way, with no room for modification or adaptation. The aliens had achieved perfection in their designs, but perfection meant they never had to think creatively about problems. Human technology was different. It was less advanced, but it was flexible. Humans were used to making do with whatever they had, modifying and adapting their tools to meet new challenges. Wu Jin realized that this might be humanity's greatest advantage. Back on Earth, engineer Hyejin Nam was reaching the same conclusion in her laboratory. She had been studying the alien devices that Earth's secret teams had brought back, and she was amazed by their sophistication. But she was also frustrated by their limitations. They never considered that someone might want to use their energy, weapons for something other than destroying targets, she explained to her team. Look at this power source. It produces exactly the right amount of energy for their weapon design, nothing more and nothing less. Her assistant, a young physicist, named Dr. Kyungmin Han, looked confused. Is not that good? Perfect efficiency? Perfect efficiency for one purpose, Hyejin replied. But what if you need more power? What if you want to use the energy for something else? Their design cannot adapt. She held up a human-made device that looked crude compared to the alien technology. Our fusion reactor is less efficient, but we can modify its output. We can use it to power weapons or engines or life support systems. We can even overload it if we need emergency power. Dr. Han began to understand. The aliens optimized for perfection. We optimized for flexibility. Exactly. And in a real fight, flexibility wins over perfection every time. Meanwhile, diplomat Yuna Seo was learning about alien psychology. After 3 days of meetings with Ambassador Kresh, she had discovered that the Galactic Council species were not as united as they appeared. Each of the 12 ruling species had their own interests and ambitions. They cooperated because the current system gave them all power over lesser species, but they did not trust each other. The Veltar have controlled the military for too long, she said to Kresh during one of their private conversations. Surely the other species would prefer a more balanced approach to governance. Kresh's 4 eyes narrowed. What do you mean? I have studied the Council's history, Yuna lied smoothly. The Zephyrians have superior technology. The Corvani are better administrators. The Veltar are good soldiers, but is military force the best way to bring peace to primitive worlds? She could see that her words were having an effect. Kresh was nodding slowly, thinking about the implications. Perhaps Earth's integration could be handled differently, he said after a long pause. The Veltar approach has always been direct, but humans might respond better to Corvani administrative methods. Yuna smiled and made a note on her tablet. I think the Corvani would be very interested to hear that humanity values their expertise. What Ambassador Kresh did not know was that Yuna was having similar conversations with representatives from all 12 council species. She was telling each group that humanity preferred their approach over the others, and that Earth would be more cooperative if they were in charge of the integration process. By the end of the week, the council species were arguing among themselves about who should control Earth's integration. Some wanted to use the Veltar military approach. Others preferred the Corvani administrative method. Still others insisted that their own species' techniques would work best. The arguments were becoming heated, and council forces that should have been preparing for Earth's integration were instead positioning themselves for conflicts with each other. Captain Wu Jin returned to Earth on day 28 of the ultimatum, bringing with him detailed scans of alien technology from 4 different worlds. The information he and the other secret teams had gathered would have taken Earth scientists decades to develop on their own. But more importantly, he brought back intelligence about alien weaknesses. The council species were arrogant and overconfident. They had never faced an enemy that could match their technology, so their tactics were designed for fighting primitive opponents. Their ships were powerful but predictable. Their soldiers were well-trained but inflexible. They fight like they have already won, he reported to Commander Kim. They do not expect real resistance, so they are not prepared for it. With 2 days remaining until the ultimatum expired, Earth's leaders finally had the information they needed to make their choice. The aliens expected humanity to surrender or be destroyed. They had no idea that humans had spent 30 days learning how to fight back. Commander Kim looked at the reports from all the secret missions and smiled for the first time in a month. The Galactic Council had given Earth 30 days to prepare for integration. Instead, humanity had used those 30 days to prepare for war. Fleet Admiral Tae Young-han floated in the command center of the hidden military station, watching the countdown timer on the main screen. In 6 hours, the 30-day ultimatum would expire. The Galactic Council was expecting Earth's surrender. Instead, they were going to get the biggest surprise in the galaxy's history. The station was built inside a hollowed-out asteroid in the outer solar system, invisible to alien sensors. Around it, thousands of similar asteroids housed ships, weapons, and soldiers that had been secretly assembled over the past month. Earth had turned its own solar system into a trap, and the aliens had no idea what was waiting for them. Admiral, we are receiving the signal from Earth, reported Communications Officer Min-Soo Park. Commander Kim is transmitting humanity's response to the Council. On the main screen, they could see the alien flagship hanging in Earth's orbit. Ambassador Kresh and his delegation were aboard, waiting to hear humanity's surrender. Instead, they received a simple message. Humanity respectfully declines your offer. Please leave our system. Admiral Han smiled grimly as she watched the alien ship's reaction. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then the ship began to move, calling for reinforcements from the rest of the Council fleet. They are activating their weapons, reported Tactical Officer Yan-Woo Kim. 12 battlecruisers are moving toward Earth. They intend to bombard the major cities. Let them come, Admiral Han said calmly. Colonel Kang, are you boarding? Teams ready? Colonel Jinwoo Kang nodded from his position on the assault ship deck. 200 teams standing by, Admiral. We have studied their ship designs for weeks. We know exactly where to hit them. Commander So-Young Lim looked up from her cyber warfare station. Their communication networks are wide open, Admiral. They never imagined anyone could hack their systems. I can take control of their ships whenever you give the order. The alien fleet moved into attack position, completely unaware that they were surrounded. Earth's defenders had learned from the captured alien technology, but they had improved upon it in ways the Council species could never have imagined. The human ships were smaller and faster than alien vessels, but they packed weapons that no alien scientist had ever seen. Engineer Hyejin Nam had taken alien energy weapons and modified them to be more powerful and more flexible. Human shields could adapt to different types of attacks instead of protecting against only one kind of weapon. Most importantly, human ships could work together in ways that alien fleets never could. The Council species had achieved perfect technology, but they had lost the ability to innovate during combat. Human crews could modify their tactics, their weapons, and even their ships while fighting. Alien fleet is in position, reported Tactical Officer Kim. They are preparing to fire on Earth's major cities. Admiral Han took a deep breath. This was the moment that would determine humanity's future. All units, this is Admiral Han. Begin Operation Homecoming. The space around Earth suddenly came alive with activity. Thousands of human ships emerged from asteroid hiding places, from behind moons, and from within the debris of old space stations. They had been there all along, invisible and waiting. The alien fleet found itself surrounded by an enemy they had never expected to see. Primitive humans, using technology that should have been centuries beyond their capability. Impossible, breathed Admiral Veltar Thane from the bridge of the Council flagship. These primitives should not have space-worthy vessels. Their technology should be limited to crude rockets. But the evidence was right in front of him. Human ships were not only space-worthy, they were superior to Council designs in many ways. They moved faster, turned quicker, and seemed to anticipate every Council tactic before it was executed. Commander Lim struck first with her cyber attack. In seconds, she had penetrated the alien communication network and began rewriting their tactical software. Suddenly, half the alien fleet was receiving false orders, while the other half found their weapons targeting their own allies. What is happening to our systems? Demanded Admiral Thane. Unknown technology, sir, replied his communications officer. The humans appear to have developed some kind of electronic warfare capability. On the human command station, Admiral Han watched with satisfaction as the alien fleet began to tear itself apart. But she knew that cyber warfare alone would not be enough. The aliens would adapt quickly once they understood what was happening. Launch the boarding parties, she ordered. Colonel Kang, show them how humans fight when they are protecting their home. Colonel Kang's assault ships shot toward the alien vessels like arrows. They were small and fast, designed to get through enemy defenses and attach to alien hulls. Once attached, human soldiers would cut their way inside and capture the ships from within. The aliens tried to shoot down the boarding craft, but human ships provided cover fire that was devastatingly accurate. Every shot was calculated to disable alien weapons without destroying the ships themselves. Earth wanted to capture alien technology, not destroy it. The first boarding party reached the Council flagship within minutes. Colonel Kang led the assault personally, cutting through the alien hull with modified mining equipment that had been turned into military tools. Inside the alien ship, the human soldiers faced enemies they had trained for but never seen in real combat. The Veltar were larger and stronger than humans, with forearms and natural armor. but they were also slower and less flexible. Kang ducked under a Veltar warrior's forearmed attack and struck back with a weapon that had been designed for mining asteroids. The alien's armor, designed to stop energy weapons, could not protect against the modified mining laser that burned through it like paper. "These humans are insane," shouted one of the Veltar soldiers. "They fight without fear. They fight for their world." Kang replied in the alien's own language, which he had learned during the secret missions. "That is something you would not understand." The battle raged through the corridors of the alien flagship. Human soldiers used every trick they had learned during 30 days of intelligence gathering. They knew the layout of Council ships. They knew where the vital systems were located. Most importantly, they knew that alien soldiers were trained to fight primitive enemies who would panic and surrender when faced with superior technology. Humans did not panic. Instead, they adapted. When alien energy weapons proved ineffective, against human armor, the humans switched to projectile weapons. When alien soldiers tried to use their superior size and strength, humans used speed and teamwork to overcome them. When alien reinforcements arrived, humans were ready with traps and ambushes. Within an hour, Colonel Kang's team had captured the flagship's bridge. Admiral Thane found himself staring at human soldiers who should not have existed, using technology that should have been impossible, and winning a battle that should have been unwinnable. "Surrender your vessel," Colonel Kang ordered in perfect Veltar. "Your crew will not be harmed if you cooperate." Admiral Thane looked around at his bridge, now controlled by primitive humans who had somehow defeated his advanced technology. "This is impossible. The Council has ruled the galaxy for 50,000 years. No primitive species has ever resisted successfully." "Then you have been fighting the wrong primitives," Kang replied. "Humans do not surrender. We adapt." Across the solar system, similar battles were taking place on every Council ship. Human boarding parties were capturing alien vessels faster than the Council fleet could respond. The aliens had superior technology, but humans had superior tactics and the desperate courage of people fighting for their freedom. Commander Lim's cyber warfare was disrupting alien communications so effectively that Council ships could not coordinate their defense. Some alien vessels were receiving orders to retreat, while others were told to advance. Still others found their own weapons firing on their allies. "Admiral, we have captured 8 enemy vessels," reported Colonel Kang from the flagship. "The remaining ships are attempting to retreat." Admiral Han nodded with satisfaction. "Let some of them go. We want the galaxy to know what happened here." But she was not finished yet. Earth had captured alien ships and technology, but that was not enough. The galaxy needed to understand that humanity was not a species to be threatened or conquered. "Broadcast our message on all Council communication frequencies," she ordered Commander Lim. Across the galaxy, every Council world received the same transmission. It showed the human flag flying from the captured alien flagship, with Admiral Han speaking directly to the camera. "This is Fleet Admiral Tae-Young Han of the Earth Defense Force. Today, the Galactic Council sent a fleet to enforce their ultimatum against humanity. That fleet no longer exists. We have captured their vessels, their technology, and their personnel." The transmission showed images of alien soldiers being treated with respect and dignity, even though they had come to conquer Earth. "We did not seek this conflict. We offered peace and cooperation. Instead, you demanded our surrender and threatened our destruction. You have learned today that humanity does not surrender to bullies no matter how powerful they think they are." Admiral Han's expression hardened. "But we are not conquerors like you. We do not enslave other species or steal their worlds. We defend ourselves, and we help others defend themselves." Dr. Yoon Ji-yoon sat in her office, studying the psychological profiles of 12 different alien species. As Earth's leading expert in xenopsychological warfare, she had spent the last 3 months learning how to fight an enemy's mind instead of just their ships. The military victory in Earth's solar system had been impressive, but it was only the beginning. "The Council species have never experienced fear," she explained to the assembled Earth Defense Force commanders. "For 50,000 years they have been the predators. Every other species has been prey. They do not know how to react when someone fights back successfully. Captain Dong-hyun Park nodded from his seat at the conference table. My liberation fleets are ready to deploy, Doctor. But we need to understand how these species will react when they learn that their empire is crumbling. Dr. Yoon turned to the holographic display showing the galaxy. Red dots marked council-controlled worlds, while yellow dots showed species that were enslaved or oppressed. There were far more yellow dots than red ones. The council maintains power through two methods, she continued: fear and division. They keep subject species afraid by demonstrating overwhelming force against anyone who resists. They also keep subject species fighting each other instead of uniting against the council. Agent Mi Kyung-oh, who had been working undercover within the council bureaucracy for 2 months, provided additional intelligence. The council species are starting to panic. They never planned for a situation where their military was defeated by primitives. Their entire government structure is based on the idea that they are superior to everyone else. What happens when that idea collapses? Asked Captain Park. Chaos, Dr. Yoon replied. But we can control that chaos and use it to our advantage. Instead of letting the council collapse randomly, we guide its destruction in a way that helps the oppressed species gain their freedom. The plan that Earth developed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of conquering council worlds, human fleets would liberate the species that the council had enslaved. Instead of demanding tribute from defeated enemies, humans would share technology and offer partnership. Captain Park's first target was the world of Kepler 442b, where a species called the Therians had been enslaved by the Council for 3,000 years. The Therians were natural engineers, but the Council had forbidden them from developing advanced technology. They were forced to work in mines and factories, producing materials for their Council overlords. When Captain Park's fleet arrived at Kepler 442b, they found a heavily defended Council outpost and a population of 6 billion enslaved Therians. The Council had told the Therians that any attempt at rebellion would result in the destruction of their entire world. This is Captain Dong-hyun Park of the Earth Liberation Fleet, he broadcast on all frequencies. We come as allies, not conquerors. To the Therian people, your long enslavement is about to end. To the Council forces, you have 10 minutes to evacuate this system or face the consequences. The Council commander, a Veltar general named Ketvar, responded with typical arrogance. Primitive humans, you do not understand what you are facing. This world is protected by the full might of the Council. Leave now, or be destroyed, like the insignificant insects you are. Captain Park smiled grimly. The aliens still did not understand that everything had changed. General Ketvar, you are about to learn why the Council fleet at Earth no longer exists. The battle for Kepler 442b lasted exactly 17 minutes. Human ships, now equipped with captured and improved alien technology, tore through the Council defenses like they were made of paper. But more importantly, the human attack was precisely targeted to avoid harming any Therian civilians or their infrastructure. When the Council forces surrendered, they found themselves being treated as prisoners of war rather than being executed or enslaved. This was something completely new in their experience, but the real surprise came when Captain Park addressed the Therian population. People of Theria, you are now free. Earth offers you alliance and friendship, but we do not demand your obedience. Your world belongs to you. Your future is yours to choose. Elder Therian leader Zeftal could barely believe what he was hearing. You do not wish to rule us? We wish to work with you, Captain Park replied. Earth has learned much from studying Council technology, but we suspect you know things that even the Council has forgotten. If you are willing to share your knowledge, we will share ours. The psychological effect of this approach was devastating to Council morale throughout the galaxy. Subject species began to realize that the Council's power was not absolute. More importantly, they learned that there was an alternative to the Council's rule. Dr. Yoon monitored the reaction from Earth's command center. Agent O, what are you seeing from inside the Council bureaucracy? Agent O, still maintaining her cover as a Council administrator, reported from the capital world. Complete confusion. The Council cannot understand why humans are freeing their slaves instead of taking them for themselves. They keep waiting for the catch, for the moment when humanity reveals its true intentions. And what are they doing about it? Fighting among themselves. The Veltar want to send massive military fleets to crush human forces. The Corvani think negotiation might work better. The Zephyrians are convinced this is all part of some elaborate human psychological trick. Dr. Yoon nodded with satisfaction. This was exactly what she had predicted. The Council species had maintained unity only because they were always winning. Now that they were losing, their old rivalries and disagreements were resurfacing. Keep feeding their paranoia, she instructed Agent O. Make sure each species thinks the others are secretly planning to betray them. The more they fight each other, the less they can fight us. Over the next 2 months, Captain Park's liberation fleets freed 17 different worlds. Each liberation followed the same pattern: swift military action to defeat Council forces, followed by genuine offers of alliance with the freed species. The results exceeded Earth's wildest expectations. Species that had been enemies for centuries began working together when they realized they shared a common oppressor. Technologies that the Council had suppressed for millennia were rediscovered and shared. Worlds that had been stripped bare of resources began to heal as their populations were freed from forced labor. But most importantly, the psychological warfare was working. Council species were abandoning their posts and fleeing to the core worlds. Subject species were rising, up in rebellion across the galaxy. The Council's empire was collapsing not because of military defeat, but because its subjects no longer believed in its power. Agent O provided regular reports on the Council's growing desperation. They are calling emergency sessions every day. Now, some members want to negotiate with humanity, others want to destroy Earth completely. A few are even suggesting they abandon the outer territories and concentrate their forces around the core worlds. What about their military commanders? Asked Dr. Yoon. Many of them are refusing orders. They do not want to face human fleets after what happened at Earth. Some are even defecting to the Human Alliance. The most spectacular defection came from Admiral Zarketh of the Corvani fleet. The Corvani had always prided themselves on being administrators rather than conquerors, and many of them were uncomfortable with the Council's brutal methods. I have spent my entire career enforcing the Council's will, Admiral Zarketh announced in a galaxy-wide broadcast. I have seen worlds stripped of their resources and populations enslaved. I was told this was necessary for galactic civilization. But when I see how humans treat their former enemies, I realize that we were the barbarians all along. The Admiral's entire fleet joined the Human Alliance, bringing with them detailed intelligence about Council military capabilities and plans. More importantly, they brought legitimacy. If even Council species were joining the Human Alliance, then perhaps humanity really was offering something better than the old system. Dr. Yoon watched the reports coming in from across the galaxy and allowed herself a small smile. The Council had ruled through fear and division for 50,000 years. But humanity was offering something the galaxy had never seen before: genuine cooperation between equals. Agent O, what is the current status of the Council government? Barely functional, O replied. Half the member species have recalled their representatives. The other half are sending conflicting messages. Yesterday, the Veltar delegation walked out of a meeting because the Zephyrians suggested negotiating with humanity. And the military situation? 3 more fleets defected to the Human Alliance this week. The Council now controls less than 40% of their original territory. Most of their remaining forces are concentrated around the 12 core worlds. Dr. Yoon turned to Captain Park, who had returned to Earth for strategic planning. How many species have joined our alliance? 87 so far, Park replied. More are asking for liberation every day. We cannot keep up with the request for assistance. It was a good problem to have. In less than 6 months, humanity had gone from facing extinction to leading the largest alliance in galactic history. But Dr. Yoon knew that the real test was yet to come. The Council will not surrender easily, she warned. President Seung Ho Jeon stood at the podium in the Great Assembly Hall of the former Galactic Council, looking out at representatives from over 200 species. 6 months ago, he had been a colonel in Earth's military, planning the defense of his homeworld. Now he was addressing the largest gathering of free species in galactic history. The hall itself was a symbol of how much had changed. Where once 12 council species had sat in elevated thrones, looking down at supplicant races, now every species sat at the same level. The old symbols of council authority had been replaced with simple banners representing cooperation and equality. 6 months ago, President John began, the Galactic Council gave humanity an ultimatum: surrender or be destroyed. Today we gather, not to celebrate the destruction of our enemies, but to build something better than what came before. In the audience, Ambassador HFY Kim watched with quiet satisfaction. As Earth's chief diplomatic architect, she had spent months negotiating with hundreds of different species, each with their own languages, customs, and grievances. The fact that they were all sitting together peacefully was a miracle of diplomacy. General Kyung-Soo Lee sat nearby, representing the military side of humanity's revolution. His forces now included ships and soldiers from dozens of species, all working together under a new doctrine that emphasized protection rather than conquest. The old council ruled through fear. President John continued. They told subject species that only through submission could they find safety. They promised order in exchange for freedom, but we have proven that there is a better way. The speech was being broadcast across the galaxy, reaching worlds that had been cut off from communication for centuries under council rule. On former council worlds, the remaining loyalist populations watched with a mixture of fear and curiosity. Many of them had never imagined that there could be an alternative to the system that had ruled their lives for so long. Ambassador Kresh sat in the prisoner section, still unable to believe what he was witnessing. The Veltar diplomat who had once delivered ultimatums to primitive species was now watching those same primitives reshape galactic civilization. It is impossible, he muttered to himself. Primitive species cannot govern themselves. Without the Council's guidance, there will be chaos and war. But as he looked around the assembly hall, Kresh could not see any chaos. Species that had been enemies for millennia were working together on joint projects. Technologies that the Council had restricted were being freely shared. Resources that had been hoarded by the powerful were being distributed to those who needed them most. President Jian's speech addressed the elephant in the room directly. Some of you wonder what will happen to the former Council species. Some call for revenge against those who oppressed you for so long. But humanity offers a different path. He gestured to a section of the hall where Corvani, Zephyrian, and even some Veltar representatives sat alongside their former subjects. We judge beings not by their species or their past actions, but by their willingness to embrace cooperation over domination. Any being from any world can join our alliance if they accept our core principles. General Lee had been skeptical of this policy at first. His military training told him that former enemies could not be trusted. But the results had been remarkable. Council species who joined the alliance brought valuable technology and experience. More importantly, they served as examples to others who were still hesitating. The Galactic Cooperative is not an empire, President John declared. We do not rule over member species, we work with them. Every world maintains its sovereignty. Every species keeps its culture and traditions. But we also share our resources, our knowledge, and our protection. Ambassador Kim had written those words herself, after months of careful study of why the council system had failed. The old government had tried to impose uniformity on the galaxy's diverse species. The cooperative celebrated that diversity and used it as a source of strength. In the months since humanity's victory, the results had been extraordinary. Medical technology from the Therians had eliminated diseases that had plagued the galaxy for centuries. Zephyrian agricultural techniques had ended famines on dozens of worlds. Human adaptability had solved engineering problems that other species had considered impossible. But cooperation requires trust, President Jian continued. And trust must be earned. That is why we are here today, to establish the principles that will guide our alliance for generations to come. The Galactic Cooperative Charter that Ambassador Kim had helped draft was unlike any governing document in galactic history. Instead of lists of rules and punishments, It focused on shared values and mutual support. Instead of concentrating power in the hands of a few species, it distributed authority based on expertise and consent. General Lee stood to present the military aspects of the new system. Under the old council, military force was used to crush dissent and enforce obedience. The Cooperative Defense Force exists only to protect member worlds from external threats and to help maintain peace between members. The new military doctrine was revolutionary in its restraint. CDF forces were forbidden from occupying member worlds or interfering in internal politics. Their only job was to respond to requests for assistance from legitimate governments. We have proven that cooperation is more effective than coercion, General Lee declared. The old council maintained order through fear. We maintained peace through friendship. Even former council military officers were impressed by the results. Wars that had raged for centuries had ended when the combatants joined the cooperative and gained access to resources they had been fighting over. Piracy had almost disappeared when former raiders were offered legitimate employment in the CDF. President John returned to the podium for the final part of his speech. The age of empires is ending. The age of cooperation has begun. We invite every species, every world, every being who shares our vision to join us in building a galaxy where no one needs to fear conquest or enslavement. As he spoke, reports were coming in from across the galaxy. The last council holdouts on the core worlds were surrendering without a fight. Their populations had seen the prosperity and freedom that cooperative worlds enjoyed, and they wanted the same for themselves. Ambassador Kresh watched in stunned silence as species after species stood to pledge their allegiance to the new order. These were races that the council had dismissed as primitive or worthless. Now they were taking their place as equals in galactic civilization. How did this happen? He asked the Therian delegate sitting next to him. Elder Zeftal, whose people had been enslaved by the council for 3 millennia, looked at the human president with something approaching reverence. They treated us as equals instead of subjects. They shared instead of taking. They protected instead of threatening. It is a simple concept, but one that the council never understood. The ceremony concluded with the formal signing of the cooperative charter. Representatives from 247 species added their signatures to the document that would govern the galaxy's future. The old council throne room, where 12 species had once dictated terms to hundreds of others, now witnessed the birth of true galactic democracy. But perhaps the most significant moment came afterward during the private reception. Ambassador Kresh found himself standing before President Jian, still wearing the restraints of a prisoner of war. "I do not understand you humans," Kresh said. "You had the power to enslave us as we enslaved others. You could have taken revenge for our threats against your world. Instead, you offer us partnership. Why?" President Jian considered the question carefully. "Because we learned something that your council never did. True strength does not come from dominating others. It comes from lifting them up. A galaxy where everyone is free to contribute their best is stronger than a galaxy where most beings live in fear." Kresh stared at the human leader for a long moment. "And you believe this will work? You believe that species who have been enemies for millennia can truly cooperate?" "I believe in the evidence," John replied. "In 6 months we have ended more wars, solved more problems, and advanced more technologies than the Council did in 1,000 years. Not because humans are superior, but because free beings working together can accomplish anything." As the reception continued around them, representatives from hundreds of worlds mingled freely, sharing ideas and forming partnerships that would have been impossible under the old system. The galaxy's future was being written in conversations between species who had never been allowed to speak as equals before. Ambassador Kresh found himself wondering what might have happened if the Council had tried cooperation instead of conquest 50,000 years ago. How much suffering could have been prevented? How much progress had been lost? But as he watched a group of young beings from a dozen different species working together on a new transportation design, he realized that dwelling on the past was pointless. The galaxy's future had arrived, carried on the shoulders of a species that the Council had dismissed as primitive. Humanity had done more than survive the Council's ultimatum. They had shown the galaxy that there was a better way to live among the stars. And for the first time in 50,000 years, every being in the galaxy could look forward to a future where they would be judged not by their species,